And we are live. Good evening, everyone. I can see there's 23 of you already in the chat. Shout out to everyone who's joined. We're here. It's 8:30 on a Wednesday. Time for the BG podcast. Pleased to say on the panel joining me, I've got Jet and I've got Jay. Irish Tom is joining imminently, I believe. He's been threatening on Twitter an Irish takeover this week. So looking forward to finding out what that entails. Paul may be on a bit later. He's not able to join us at the start. Lots of rumours that he is not going to be showing his face this week after some of the comments he made on last week's podcast relating to Conor McGregor's chances in the Floyd Mayweather fight. So, we'll have enough of a panel to make a go of it, and lots of news in boxing. Not a huge amount of boxing last week, not a huge amount of boxing next week, but still enough to be discussing. We've had the retirement of Vladimir Klitschko, so we'll be discussing some of his legacy on this podcast. We have got a lot of other news in the sport of boxing. Cleverly versus Badu Jack looking confirmed. Burns versus Crawler on. The return of David Price. So enough to get cracking. We're going to start by looking at last week's boxing. And there is only one fight to begin with, which is, of course, Lomachenko. So without further ado, let me bring in Jet. Jet, give us your take on the fight from last weekend against Mariaga, mate.
Yeah, Lomachenko did what he needed to do. He fought an opponent who was actually coming off a loss. He lost to Oscar Valdez in the lower weight class. And yeah, not really too much to say. He looked, splendid as he always does. As we were kind of speaking off air, it would be a bit better if he was, facing the elites of the division. I know there isn't too many in the 130-pound division. Miguel Bichel, maybe there. Gervonta Davis, obviously Davis is fighting as a co-main event to Mayweather McGregor. He's supposed to be facing Rocky Martinez. So someone like that, if it was possible, would be good. But he looked good against Mariaga, did what he needed to do. And yeah, he's certainly winning some fans over, as I spoke with you about just before we went on air.
Yeah, definitely. What fights are there realistically that you'd like to see him take, Jet?
Realistically, I don't think Floyd's going to put Gervonta Davis in with him. Let's put it that way. Davis might want the fight, but I don't think Floyd wants that fight for him at the moment. Bichel is probably a realistic fight. I think, they probably work with Golden Boy to make a deal. And get that fight. Maybe I'm not 100% sure. Corrales is another fight. Corrales isn't with a big promoter. I'm not sure many people know about him. He's a Panamanian WBA champion. That would be a good fight. But then if not, you're kind of looking at the 135-pound division, or you're looking at a potential featherweight moving up, or Guillermo Rigondeaux at a catchweight, I guess. Mikey Garcia obviously is a possibility at lightweight. There's a few other guys, Robert Easter, Jorge Norris is obviously tied up with Luke Campbell. So, there are a few options, but realistically at the moment, I don't know really who wants to get in the ring with him. Mikey is probably the only guy that I would say 110% wants to get in the ring with him. Bichel, obviously, that promotional sort of standoff might be there. And Corrales, he didn't look great in his last fight against Castellanos, who knocked out Gamboa before. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I do feel for Lomachenko slightly in terms of he doesn't have a major guy there that he could have a duel with. Orlando Salido maybe, but we'll see if that fight comes to fruition.
Now, Jet, I'm not as hardcore as you, but I think one of Lomachenko's biggest problems is the fact that, and we were discussing this off air, is that when you've got a guy like Lomachenko who's a pure boxer and he's not the biggest trash talker or WWE style star outside of the rings, especially when they're at the lower weight classes, what you really need is somebody who can bring out the best of him in terms of an opponent, a rivalry, something to build that up. Now, the names you've mentioned, Berchelt, Corrales, etc., for me, they may be good names in boxing. They may be appreciated by the hardcore, but those are not names who are going to take his career and profile to the next level. Guys like Mikey Garcia, for me, the size difference there is just too vast to make that a competitive fight. You know, we spoke about seeing the two guys together, and Garcia just towered over him. What about Rigondeaux? Can this fight actually be made? Is that a realistic matchup at this stage?
You know what? It's a tough one because Rigo's obviously been calling them out pretty much every other day on Twitter, as we've all seen. But you know, I don't know. The size difference is you know, is pretty large. Let's put it that way. We were speaking off air just before we went on, and Rigo's more of a super fly or a bantamweight. You know, he's not really a 1-2-2 fighter, and he's kind of fighting there because, you know, he has the talent to do so, and you know the guys won't really step up and face him, or you know, obviously Carl Frampton avoided him, Scott Quigg avoided him, and there's obviously a few others. So you know, there's obviously it's difficult to say if that fight's actually realistic, especially even at a catchweight, to be honest. But you know, if the fight can be made, it would be a fantastic sort of boxing spectacle. You know, they're both really skillful, decorated amateurs, and they've you know, their skills are somewhat comparable. Obviously, Lomachenko I think is a bit more high output and high octane in the ring, probably more in terms of he showboats a bit as well. Rigo is very low output, a bit more like Floyd, I'd say. But I don't even think Rigo's a good name on the record in terms of for the casual market. What you were saying about Lomachenko, I think you know, not many people know about Rigo. I'd say Mikey Garcia, obviously coming off a big win against Adrian Broner, is a good name to have. Also, you know, Jorge Linares would be a good name, especially like people he lives in the UK now. People in the UK follow Jorge Linares. That would be a good fight if he can come through his fight with Luke Campbell and he moves up. So I think those two fights are more realistic, and they do better for Lomachenko's profile than the Rigo fight, in my opinion.
I hear you, mate, and I think that's sound reasoning. Certainly, a fight with a Linares is mouthwatering, I guess. So we'll have to see how it comes into fruition. Let's bring Jay in. Jay, did you watch the Lomachenko-Mariaga fight, and if so, what was your take on it, mate?
I did watch it, of course. I think it was just standard stuff from him again. Every time I watch him, I always see something else in him.
Oh, Jay.
Cutting out,
you lost Jay there, or is it me?
No, he cut out there, mate.
Jay, you there? Can you hear me, Jay?
Might want to drop off and come back on.
Yeah, might be a plan.
Well, Irish out of the cage early.
Yeah, when we're waiting to get Jay back, let's unleash Iris a bit earlier than anticipated. Iris, thanks for joining. I hear you're threatening a takeover this weekend, mate. You're on mute. You're not going to take over if you can't turn yourself off mute, Iris.
So far, there's only two guys playing ball here.
So far, so good, hey guys. It's like me and Jet with a sprinkling of Jay. Jay or Iris, please let us know in the chat if either of you are able to speak. I'm trying to take Iris. You there? Iris. Jet, I'm going to have to plug on with you, I'm afraid, mate, and we'll...
Don't worry, I'm going to get some... Oh, Jay's just dropped off. I'll get some abuse, don't worry, man. Yeah. Feel free.
Did you happen to watch the Virginia Singh fight, Jet?
I didn't actually know he was fighting, to be honest. Yeah, I saw your post-fight interview, then I did see some highlights. I didn't get to watch the whole fight. It was a bit controversial. Fill me in, if you will, please.
Yeah, it was a very tight fight. very tight. Judges had it close, but scored it unanimously to Vijinda. A lot of people thought that Vijinda suffered a knockdown, but it wasn't counted by the referee. I was one of those. But really, very stiff, very robotic, pouring with the jab, inaccurate, struggling to find his range, very limited capability on the inside. Really, really struggled under any sort of pressure. You know, half the fighter on the back foot, unable to deal with someone looking to close the gap on him. You know, just a really average performance, which kind of gave you the impression that he'd struggle at sort of top 30, top 40 level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think he's a super middleweight, to be honest. I think he's better suited to middleweight. But I've always kind of said that at the start. I don't think anyone's ever listened. But yeah, I'm not sold on Vijinda Singh, to be honest, which is odd since he's supposed to be a compatriot. But yeah, I'm not sold on him at all. And he's also left Frank Warren, hasn't he? Apparently,
he's now back with Frank Warren.
Oh.
But yeah, something's going on there.
Did you catch the Mauricio Herrera fight versus Carras? That was also on a Friday.
I didn't, mate. Did Herrera win?
Yeah, he won. He basically the fight ebbed and flowed. It had a bit of boxing in there, had a bit of a tear up in there. Herrera won. Difficult to see where he goes though. He's kind of stuck in at 140 and 147. At 140, obviously, the belts are being tied up with Crawford in Dongo. And at 147, I just think he's a bit too small to compete. Obviously, he's kind of Modern Broadcast said in the chat he thought so to Carras won. Yeah, it was a close fight, but I think Herrera, obviously, he's kind of known for the Danny Garcia fight, isn't he? But for getting robbed. But yeah, I think he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, if I'm honest. Jay's back.
Indeed. Well, Irish is also threatening a return, so I'm going to try and bring Iris back in.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, hello, Jay. Jay,
fuck off, Jay. Fuck off, Jay. Wait your turn.
Let me just bring Iris in quickly, Jay, and then I'll
get him.
Then I'll come back to you. It's like bosses, Jet. You wait all night for one of the panelists to speak, and then they both speak at once. 100 of you watching live. If you are watching live, please hit the thumbs up button so more people can see this and we can get more people joining. Iris, let's bring you in, mate. Technical difficulties earlier?
No, I just wasn't fucked and talking at the time.
Oh, well, I guess being the charismatic enigma you are, that is your right, mate. How is things? How is the takeover going?
Takeover is commencing, lads. The Irish takeover, both the podcasting world and the boxing fighting world, is nearly complete. It'll be completed on August 26th. I give a lot of thought to Paul's thinking over the week, and I've turned out that I've decided that he's right. And Paul sent me here tonight to represent the Irish and to let us know that we're going to be pound for pound. The top 10 are all going to be Irish pound for pound, hopefully by the end of September, once Canelo wins. And, you know, everybody just knows by looking at Canelo that he's another Irish.
I watched that film, The Departed, last night, Tom. Have you ever seen that?
I have indeed.
Would you a good film? I was a bit complex for my small mind, but I enjoyed it.
I like that film. I think that's a classic film.
Good film. Good film. Tom, we've digressed. Let's talk Lomachenko, mate. Did you catch it? What did you make of it?
I've watched most of it. You know, I'm going to be slightly controversial here, but I find Lomachenko boring to watch. I don't know if he does so much pitter-patter stuff. You know, I just find him. You know, I think the hardcores can see that he's good, but I don't think he's a fighter to garner the attention of the casual fan so much. Because I think, you know, that type of fighter is usually very, very much reliant on power, or if not that, a very outlandish personality. And while he's technically, you know, good, and he's certainly innovative in his fighting style, I just kind of find him boring to watch.
Is it? Yeah. I know what you mean. Do you think he's relating to the opponents, Tom? Do you think he's just fighting guys you know he's going to beat and you know are technically not on his level. Do you think that's a big factor in it?
Well, like, you know, you're watching him doing it, right? And, you know, like people say, oh, one of the great things about Gennady Golovkin that he, you know, he mixes up his punches. He throws soft, hard, and it catches people. And, you know, it's an exciting way. But Lomachenko does it to the extreme. Whereas, like, for the first 3 or 4 rounds, all he does is throw pity-patty punches most of the time. And, you know, it's kind of dull to watch. Versus, say, think of like another lower weight class guy who was obviously brilliant, Pacquiao coming through. Pacquiao was just, I know, like, at this stage in their careers, Pacquiao was probably a less technical fighter. But, like, Pacquiao would, like, burst through the scene because he just destroyed people. And I feel like if Lomachenko, I don't know if he's so much lacking power. I don't think he has the power of Pacquiao, but he's lacking. He's just a bit more conservative. He gets through these opponents.
Who would you like to see him matched up against?
I think there's some decent fights there. I think I don't think Mikey's crazily bigger than him. Like in that thing where we had the two boys talking, Mikey was saying that when he weighed in for the 140 fight, in the fight he was 146 and Broner was 158. So Mikey was walking around weight is probably like 146, 147. You know, but when he was talking to Lomachenko, that's when Lomachenko was cutting to make 130. So you're comparing like a guy who's like 145, 148 to 130. Well, you know, if Lomachenko is finding it tough to get that weight, if he's doing 135, he'll probably be 140 when they meet. You know, so and Mikey will probably only be 143 or 4 after he rehydrates from 135. So I don't think the size difference is that much. And you know, the thing is, if we're talking about like, you know, that's a much smaller to me weight difference than say Lomachenko, or sorry, well maybe it's equivalent, but I think it's much smaller. I think like Rigondeaux, I think is smaller. Is more small than versus Lomachenko than Lomachenko is versus Mikey. I just think that if Lomachenko is this amazing fighter that he's been sold to us all as, you know, that, you know, when we're talking about these pound for pound people, these people who have the ability to fight in different weight classes that are slick and all that are not optimized for that one weight class, I think, you know, that's the kind of fight that we should expect him to take if he wants to be like a De La Hoya or a well, not so much Mayweather, but or a Pacquiao, you know, that take the really tough fights. So you know, I think that's okay. Yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. Tom, let me go to Jay and bring Jay in, and then we'll come back to you for some of the news topics, which is probably where we're going to spend a majority of the pod today because there isn't too much going on next week. But appreciate that, mate. Jay, was that technical difficulties your end, pal?
Yeah, it was me. Yeah, internet shit. Fantastic. I'm trying not to disagree with Irish Tom because I got slated in the comments for always disagreeing with him, and I try not to, but it's really difficult not to when he says things like that. I mean, the guy is an awesome fighter. He's a fantastic fighter. Who is
Lomachenko or Irish Tom?
Irish Tom, I think, has been defeated a few times. So
I've never been defeated. I
wouldn't put him in.
Technical draws. Technical draws.
Top 20, I wouldn't put him in. Few no contest, but Lomachenko, I don't think he has the power. That's his issue. That's the thing that doesn't stand out. He doesn't have the power, but everything else he has. I think he can be sold to a bigger market. I think if you can sell Golovkin, you can sell him. I know Golovkin has the power and the knockouts, etc., but Lomachenko, he's come on a lot with his English, and he seems to be coming across a lot better than he has been, and he's very cocky. And I think as time goes on, that'll come out more, and he'll become more of a showman than he already is, to be honest. As far as fighting someone else, if I was him, I'd step up and I'd be gunning for Terry Flanagan. That's the man I'd be gunning for. Get a bit of that British money, and I'm sure Terry Flanagan would take the fight because he's desperate for a big name.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, I've heard Frank call out that fight once or twice. Definitely. Do you think he's, for me, Lomachenko, I know people say he's quite big at the weight. I hate to keep bringing it back to size, but does he have the size to inflict that style on the 135 guys? He's already known as quite a light puncher at the weight. Is there a risk if he keeps stepping up, he's going to be having guys completely walk through his shots?
Possibly, yeah. To a lot of Garcia and Linares, yes, because they are very technically good as well. But I think his speed and his timing and his footwork is just so much better and so many levels above a lot of fighters, that I think his natural speed and his foot movement would negate any issues that he'd get from a guy from a bigger size. I really do, and I think he could just take it 12 and just win comfortably. And I think he's a guy that steps up his game depending on the opponent. For the first couple of rounds, you always watch him, and he's always just working out. He's just working out, just seeing, trying different things. Very much like a Terence Crawford, supreme confidence in his ability, can dictate the pace of a fight and really control it from about the third to the fourth round onwards.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He's increasingly impressive, and he has improved substantially throughout his professional career. It's just, I do think the fact that there's that, it just seems that in terms of crossing him over to the casual market has been a difficulty. And, I don't know if it's the weight, I don't know if it's the personality, the style, the lack of power. I don't know what it is, but I do think they need a big name opponent to bring out the best in him, I guess.
I think the weight is always going to be an issue because those weights do not have the following, but his personality will come out, and it has come out in recent months as he gets, as I said, he gets better knowledge of the English language, and he's down to opponents now. He needs the big statement opponents, but he's willing to. I'm fully aware that he's willing to take those big fights. I don't think he would duck anyone at all. I think he has supreme confidence in his ability, and that shows in every fight he fights. He's tapping people on the head. He's smiling. At one point, you saw him, and he stepped back into the corner, didn't he, and just kept on waving on, blocked the shots, waving on, blocked the shots. I mean, the guy's confidence is supreme. So I don't think he would duck anyone, and I think he'd welcome a big fight, whoever it is.
Well, that was.
Gossip? Do you like watching Lomachenko?
No, I agree with you, Tom.
And Jay or Jet, do you like watching Lomachenko? Is he a fighter like Jet? Earth calling Jet. Jet's dead. Jet's dead, baby.
Jet's on the toilet. Give him a break.
We're not having good luck with our panelists tonight, are we? But I'll answer on Jet's behalf. Jet loves that sort of stuff. Jet will be. And
if Paul was here, Paul would say the same thing as me. He loves watching him.
Yeah, not just good Paul like decent European fighters.
However,
But yeah.
No, we'll.
Now here, don't want any of this shit. The Irish takeover is in initiation. Been initiated.
I refuse.
Definitely.
I refuse to be part of it. I don't care how many fanboys you've got.
Let's move it on and discuss some of the news in boxing. And Jay, we'll start with you on this one. Big news in the last week. It feels like old news now, but it's not that old. Vladimir Klitschko has retired from the sport. How do you think people will look back on Vladimir Klitschko's career in 10 years' time, Jay?
I was thinking about this today, and it's unfortunate because he came in an era where the heavyweight, division was on its ass. Really, he came in that crossover from when the last undisputed champion was Lennox Lewis, and then he sort of crossed over. His brother and him held the titles for so long; they pretty much sewn it up. unfortunately, his best fight could have been Vitali, would have been his greatest opponent. Every boxer needs a dancing partner, and Lewis had those fights. Tyson had the fights. Larry Holmes, not so much, because he was in a longer sort of period. He again was in a funny era. But then you got Muhammad Ali before, with Frazier, Foreman, Ken Norton, and it goes on. And every great heavyweight has those, those opponents that can bring the best out of them and bring those fights out of them. Now it seems now that with Vladimir losing, it kind of seems, although he lost to Tyson Fury, it kind of seems that Anthony Joshua has taken that mantle, and he has, at this stage, those opponents possibly to test him. We don't know. Maybe in 5 or 6 fights' time, if he wipes everyone out, then we might say, well, he's got no one really, to really test him. So unfortunately, Vladimir, we look at his career, and if you look at his record, he beat the best guys he could beat at that time. Couple of losses. I think it was 5 losses, something like that, possibly. Yeah, 5 losses.
5, yeah.
So, he beat the guys around that time. And if you look at his record to Vitali's record, some would argue that Vitali was better than Vladimir. But Vladimir has the names really on his record that Vitali didn't. And plus he had, I think 20 extra fights he's had than Vitali. So would he be in my top 10? Not for me. No, not for me. And that's only purely because, we didn't see him tested enough. He was only tested by what would not be classed as great fighters. Samuel Pater, a great fighter, Corey Saunders, Bird, the list goes on, Povetkin, Pulev, are they great fighters? Would have they survived in a different era? Would Vladimir be able, the question is, would Vladimir be able to hold his own in Mike Tyson's era in the 90s, in Muhammad Ali's era? It's really hard to say. It's a bit shame if his career was another 5 years in front of him. So he's coming into the division now with Joshua and Wilder. Maybe things might be a little bit different, and we'll be able to judge him more. But he will be remembered for being undisputed, for holding the title for over a decade, which is an achievement by itself. Regardless of your opponents.
Yeah. See, I think. I agree that he doesn't have the single wins like an Ali has, when Ali's beaten Foreman and Fraser, or Lewis has over Holyfield and Tyson. But I think he still deserves to be in that top 10, certainly top 15 conversation, because of longevity and also because of dominance. Because I appreciate that Povetkin and David Haye, I appreciate these are not all-time great top 10 heavyweights. They're not at that level. But these are very, very, very good fighters. I mean, Klitschko beat Povetkin. He probably whitewashed him in that fight. Klitschko absolutely took David Haye's game away from him, had David Haye blaming his performance on a broken toe. And, Klitschko was such a master of his style, with the jab, with his size. I know it's not fashionable to say this. People always look back at fighters from the past and, you can't question that a fighter from the past was a legend. I couldn't confidently predict that a guy like an Evander Holyfield, someone of that smaller physique, I couldn't confidently predict that someone like a Holyfield could beat a Vladimir Klitschko. I'm not saying Vladimir Klitschko necessarily wins the fight, but I think that the size, the athleticism, I think Vladimir could give a lot of top 10 heavyweights some real problems, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to a certain extent, but it's very hard to again, the sizes of the guys possibly within the 70s and the 80s were very different. Only recently has the heavyweight division transformed into a world of such big guys. And the Holyfield, he was a cruiserweight really that became a heavyweight. But of course, with his longevity, he deserves the respect. You know, it's not an easy thing to do. But then you look at his record, and he fought a lot in Germany, fought a lot at home. He didn't really push boundaries. He didn't really like to come out of his comfort zone. He kept it very cozy for himself. Okay, a lot of American fighters don't come out of America, but they were surrounded at that time by other American fighters. So he didn't really come out of his comfort zone, as I believe a world champion, a heavyweight world champion should possibly do. So for me, he's not in my top 10, but I do respect him. You know, this is a guy that's come out of boxing. He still looks in great shape. He made lots of money. He's still got his everything intact. He still speaks well. You know, he's a model professional, and so if you judge him on that, you judge him on his long reign, you judge him on the amount of fights he's had, because he's had a lot of fights, and the amount of time he was unbeaten, then yeah, of course, definitely. But whether he would hold up with past heavyweights, I don't know. But that's always, you know, a discussion point for any boxing fan, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jet, are you there, mate? You back?
Yeah. Did you call me before? I might have been...
Iris did, mate. But don't worry.
Sorry.
The moment has definitely passed. We've been talking Klitschko, Jet. What do you think Klitschko's legacy is? Will you remember him as an all-time great?
Yeah, definitely. As a maybe not the top 5 or something like that, but maybe he pushes towards the bottom end of the top 10. He has some stellar wins. Let's put it that way. David Haye, Alexander Povetkin, as you guys mentioned, some other credible wins as well. He's come back from his losses very well, and he's gone on. Kubrat Pulev is a decent win. Obviously he's lost to Fury Joshua, but against Joshua he had a very good performance, especially in his 40s. So he's had very, very credible wins. Not the standout win, like a Frazier or not Muhammad Ali, but he's definitely had a string of good wins, and he'll definitely be remembered more. What is a shame is he'll probably be remembered more for the fight with Joshua than anything, which is a bit of a shame. But I guess that's the pulling power of someone like Anthony Joshua in today's sort of boxing climate. But definitely he deserves his sort of his money in retirement. He's made a lot of money, and he gained a lot of fans and a lot of respect from the fans. So yeah, shout out to Wlad, and best of luck in his retirement. He deserves his his respect, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of power punchers, Jet, I do rate Vladimir as a lower end top 10 heavyweight. I think it would be remiss not to have him in a top 20 list, certainly. In terms of power punchers, I remember him as one of the biggest proven one-punch knockout artists of my lifetime in the heavyweight division. I'm in my mid-20s. What are you guys, what's your opinion on that in terms of Vlad as a puncher? There seems to be a lot of the modern fans seem to not even rate him in that regard.
No, I think he's a very, very good puncher. If anything, people say he's a respectable puncher, but you look at Alexander Povetkin, he knocked him down 6 times. Anthony Joshua with the right sort of straight right, he knocked him down with. I think it was, I can't remember, but he showed power there. Kubrat Pulev, he destroyed Kubrat Pulev in that fight. David Haye, I don't think David Haye was a bit slippery, but every time he caught David Haye, I think he definitely got a reaction off David. So that was another. There's plenty of fights I think Vlad's gone into, and he's definitely hurt his opponent at one stage or another, even Tyson Fury. So for me, he's a very, very good puncher. One of the hardest punchers that I've seen. I'm younger than you, so one of the more stronger punchers that I've seen growing up watching boxing.
Good stuff. No, we're on the same page yet. Tom, let's bring you back in, mate. If I recall, you're quite a fan of Wlad?
Well, I'm a fan that he took on all comers, and but I think that if he is to get mentioned in the all-time heavyweights, he's going to be, I think, quite a far way down. I think the modern heavyweights, just people in general now with better diet are a few inches taller. Like, I don't think it's reasonable to compare like a 1960s guy who's born in the 40s with the guy who's born, later on with better diets and that. They probably will be a couple of inches taller. That's the history of certainly the archaeological sizing of human bodies. As the better diet, they get much taller. So I think he would be found out by most of the top guys, to be honest, because I think he had too many weaknesses. And I think he had a boring style. But he was the best heavyweight. He tried to unify the titles. And he took on pretty much all comers, even though I firmly suspect him of doping and juicing to the hilt.
Yeah, no, that's interesting what you say about the size and that sort of thing. In terms of his most memorable wins, the likes of Hay, Povetkin, Pulev, Peters, do you not think that sort of consistency of wins over such a long period of time means he deserves to be in the conversation?
Like, I think people will mention him, but I think that's only he's been quite lucky as to be hanging around in a very weak division. Like Sam Peters is not a good fighter. Is very plodder. He had some good power, but not much speed, and a plodder. Like, when that's in your top 3 or 4 people you fought, it just shows you the paucity of the division in this time period. Say like in the 1990s, Sam Peters probably wouldn't have even been a contender, put into context, Yeah,
I hear you. We can't argue that it wasn't the weakest. It wasn't as strong a division as it has been historically. But then again, I would say Wlad made it his own division. By the way he took care of business, I guess. But yeah,
but I just think even stylistically, he's a bad matchup for a lot of the greats. Like someone like Tyson would be a stylistic nightmare for him. And maybe even a small heavyweight like Joe Frazier too. Muhammad Ali would Tyson Fury him to death. George Foreman would knock him out. Vitaly Klitschko, I think, is a better boxer. I think Vitaly would have won. So I think there's, he probably wasn't even the best fighter in his own era. Vitaly was probably better.
A lot of people say this. Vitaly's resume is very weak when you look back at it historically. I think Vlad's resume will actually be looked at more favourably in 5-10 years' time. But Vitaly's, if you had to name Vitaly's best 5 wins, I think you really would be clutching at straws.
But probably about 3 or 4 of them would include people who knocked Vladimir out.
I think his best win is Derek Chisora.
Well, that's Shannon Briggs. You
got to look at how he did. Like, he was one of the few people who went to war with Lennox Lewis in Lennox Lewis's entire career. I know Lewis was on the slide, but he was one of the few that was able to match Lewis. Other people won through a lucky punch and stuff, but he was able to match him.
But if you're using that logic, couldn't you say that Wlad was able to match Joshua and Wlad was able to match Fury?
Wlad was able to match Joshua, but he wasn't able to match Fury.
He was able to match Joshua, but not Fury, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he was able to match. Like, even though we look back and Joshua won that fight, that's a fight that was in the bands.
Yeah.
And even after I lost all the money on that fight, I thought it was still a great bet. The odds were wrong.
I'm in exactly the same boat, Tom. I lost a lot of money on that fight, but I still think it was a sensible bet to make at the time. Tom, Pulev is up next, mate. Talk to me about Joshua Pulev.
Sorry, say again?
Kubrat Pulev is up next for Joshua. Talk to me about that fight.
Yeah, I think that it is not a very good fight. I think Pulev has not got the style for Joshua. I think that Joshua will just... Like, if you look at like when Pulev got beaten by Wlad, what happened in that fight? Pulev started kind of winning the jabbing competition. Pulev did, and Wlad he kind of went for it a bit in that fight, Vladimir. And I think AJ is a much more dynamic puncher than Vladimir. He might punch as hard or whatever, but he can put these spurts together. And I think when Joshua does that, if whether I don't know whether he will or not, but if he does that, I think he'll just be able to steamroller him. And Pulev is not young. What age is Pulev? Is he 37, 38?
It's got to be up that way.
So
it's 36. Pulev.
36.
At 36. So I just think that it's a good matchup for AJ. It's no coincidence that they're going for this one versus the other mandatory in this stuff. Because I think it's, if you had a choice between fighting Pulev and then Ortiz, or Ortiz and then Pulev, you take the Pulev first because more than likely you'll win, where it's quite a risk around the Ortiz fight. And so then you won't have two big paydays, you'll only have one big payday.
Yeah, I hear you. To be fair, I know I'll get accused of being an Eddie Hearn nut hugger for even pointing this out, but to be fair, the Kubrat Pulev mandatory has been called for ages and ages and ages. The Ortiz mandatory, as I understand it, was called. So, I think it's the sensible thing to do to take the Pulev mandatory first, in my opinion. But, if I was a promoter, I'd do it.
If I was a promoter, I'd do the same. Pulev first. But I don't think it's a great fight.
Well, there's a chance of holding both belts if you fight Pulev first. Whereas if you fight Ortiz first, you definitely lose the IBF. But, there we go.
But I think that's too much of a problem for AJ, though, because AJ is such a big draw that he's the money man. So everybody wants to fight AJ. I think... I
hear you. I think it'd be nice if he fought Wilder to have the belts on the line, though. I think it would be a bit disappointing to have AJ versus Wilder in a division where several other people hold belts,
It's true, though, but even if the belt gets stripped and Ortiz gets the WBA or whatever the hell happens, Ortiz will still want to fight AJ because he's not going to get the money anywhere else, and he's getting on. So just in the kind of the mix at the moment, I don't think it's too terrible a thing, versus some other times. But if he gets stripped, I think those same fighters will very quickly want to go back and fight him because he's got a better style as well. He's got a more exciting style than Tyson Fury has. So he brings more money to the game.
No, completely agree. Jay, let's bring you back in, mate. I've said on the channel before, Kubrat Pulev is a poor man's Klitschko. Do you believe that I'm correct there? And also, given that AJ has just fought Vladimir Klitschko, do you think that's pretty ideal preparation to go into a fight with a guy like Kubrat Pulev?
He's a poor man's Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, since he lost to Vladimir, he's fought George Arias, Maurice Harris, Derek Chisora, Samuel Peter, and Kevin Johnson, who he beat on points. And Samuel Peter retired, and he beat Chisora on points. I mean, it's just a non-entity. It's just to put him up there, knock him down, end of story. Be done in maybe 4, maybe 5. It's just, it's a crap fight. Put your money on Anthony Joshua to win again, and everyone's going to be lining up to fight Joshua now. He's where the money's at. The only person that doesn't seem to want the money is Deontay Wilder for some reason. Well, obviously because he thinks he's going to get beat. But it's Pulev. Nah, I don't rate him at all. He hasn't fought anyone to make me think otherwise. The person that he has fought, he got beat, which was Vladimir. And when Vladimir was sort of prime, so not prime, but not far off his prime. And you saw what happened with Joshua and Vladimir. So I don't think it's going to be much of a contest.
See, I actually think Pulev is fairly decent. I think he's a definite top 10 heavyweight. I think he's got a good amateur background. I thought he did quite a decent job against Chisora, Tony Thompson, Ustinov, Dimitrenko. I thought he's got some some relevant form there. I think he's a decent fighter. Stylistically, I just think he's a terrible matchup for Joshua. I think he's going to stand there in front of Joshua trying to jab him. And even though he's a far better fighter than like a Molina or a Brazil, I don't think Pulev's got as much durability as them. And I think Joshua will probably just be able to walk through him easier than those guys who may actually be inferior fighters. I mean, are you kind of on the same page, Joe?
Yeah, he's going to be. He will stand in front of him, and it's exactly what Joshua likes. But the point that I keep saying this: there's levels in this heavyweight division. You've got a top 3, 4, possibly at the top end. Then you've got this upper echelons of like European fighters, and then you've got that next level down. And he's of that upper echelons of European fighters. That's all he is, you know. And he's earned his title shot. He's put himself in a position. He'll get the title shot and he'll lose, and he'll go back again, and he'll start and he'll fight Rudenko or Dimitrenko or Ustinov or any of these fighters that he's fought before. Work his way back up, and then he'll get another shot again eventually, maybe at some point. So, you know, it's levels. It's about levels, and he's not at that level. He's just not got enough to be there. There's nothing I see in him that makes me think, yeah, this is a guy that's going to cause problems for all the top boys in the division, because he's not. This is as simple as that. Even though I talk about levels, I put that top 3, top 4. I include, you know, Wilder, Parker in that, but they're still to a certain extent unproven. There might be only one elite heavyweight in the world, and that would be Tyson Fury. If not, that might be Anthony Joshua. The rest are just at a level below, unless you talk about Baby Miller, who's obviously the next greatest thing ever to put on a pair of boxing gloves, according to Irish Tom.
Certainly, if you listen to Irish Tom, I think Irish Tom said he was slicker than our lady the other day. But there you go. 150 of you guys watching live, so please continue to support this by hitting the thumbs up button, so even more people can join us live, or and see what we're doing. Jet, let's go over to you, mate. Kubrat Pulev versus Anthony Joshua. Pulse racing or not?
I don't have anything else to add. Pulev sucks.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a follow-up question there, Jet. But
okay, I'll be fair. He's a decent fighter. He's like a European level fighter, but Joshua's going to steamroll him. Let's be honest. He couldn't live with Klitschko. I know boxing triangles don't always work, but Joshua's improving. Every fight, and Pulev's. His whiskers aren't. They're not David Price, but they're not. They're not maybe granite either. So I don't see him going past maybe 6 or 7 with Joshua.
I mean, who's his biggest win? Who's his Pulev's biggest win?
Tony Thompson or Chisora, one of the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just don't think. Do you know what? Maybe against a Parker, he might have a half decent chance, just because Parker's obviously put on all this weight and he's tried to box, and I know he did it against was it Kajanu? I know he was supposed to beat him, but he looked, when someone boxes him, he looks very uncomfortable, Parker. But and I'm not saying Pulev would beat him, but he'd have a better chance than he would have against Parker than he would have against Joshua. Joshua's just going to steamroll him. He's just better overall fighter, to be honest.
Well, here's a question: Who wins, Pulev or Hughie Fury?
Hughie Fury.
Fury, just.
There you go.
But I like to see Fury get some more experience.
I think Pulev could beat Parker, though. I give him a good 40% chance in that fight. I think Parker would actually struggle with him. But yeah, I think Wilder and Joshua, he doesn't match up so well with them stylistically. But there you go. All right, guys, next few topics. I'm not going to ask a particular panelist about them. I'm just going to throw them out there, and you guys can unmute yourself and bring yourself in whenever you want to get in. I've got to say, Jet has teed me up for this one very nicely. You guys will have heard that David Price, former World Heavyweight Championship certainty, is making a comeback to the sport following his KO loss to Christian Hamer. I covered it in a video yesterday. What I didn't know in that video when I put it up is that his comeback opponent is actually Rafael Zambano Love, who's a well-known journeyman gatekeeper type. He lost to Anthony Joshua and a few others. Now, a lot of people online actually speculating this is potentially a difficult fight for David Price. Zambano Love is the kind of guy who, on occasion, has hung around for a few rounds, and maybe people are actually considering it an ambitious comeback fight for David Price. I must admit, I think it should be relatively easy work, but what do I know? What's your take on this comeback, guys?
Well, I'll tell you this, boys. David Price is the heir to Vladimir Klitschko. So
trolling.
Now that Vlad
That epic trolling.
retired.
I love that.
Fuck off.
Now, shut up. Irish takeover here. Now that the Vlad has retired his place at the top of the division and go down as an all-time great. Signing out.
Who do you guys think has had a better career, David Price or Audley Harrison?
Audley bet Danny Williams.
Audley won a gold medal.
I'd be inclined to say Audley as well, to be honest.
Audley. I guess David Price did flatten Audley in a round, but I guess you'd have to say Audley has had the better career, I guess.
I don't know why he's doing it. I just
Audley fought.
This is a case of a boxer that just can't leave it alone.
Audley,
it's plain to see.
Wilder as well. So
that,
future world champion. So I'd be inclined to go Audley.
I don't know. It must be. Is it money? Is it just because he can't stay away? When he first started out and he was knocking people out, and you look at him and you think he always looked a bit thin, a bit on the thin side, but a good stature, good size, pretty good technically. He got found out, but through Tony Thompson, those drug issues, and then he comes back with Dave Caldwell, and he comes quite flabby, comes a lot bigger. Maybe you're thinking, well, that's going to solve the problem now. Not necessarily being super trim is not necessarily good for your conditioning. Tyson Fury is a perfect example of that. But then he gets found out again, and he freezes and loses all stamina, and you just think that's it, mate. That's enough. Now, what happens if he beats Love, and then where does he go there? Is he going to knock out a couple of tomato cans, and then he's going to move on to what, a European champion, title or world title?
Do you think he does beat Love, Jay?
Pardon?
Do you think he beats Zambano Love?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Because every time you watch him, he starts like his last fight. He started off quite well. He's moving a little bit. He's got a good good thunderous jab, and you kind of think, yeah, this is it. He's got it now, and you kind of want him to win. You really do want him to win because you just think it's almost there, and then all of a sudden it kind of just drains out of him, and he doesn't know where he is. So I think Love will not cause him too many problems, and I know what's going to happen. He'll probably knock him out, and then they're going to start talking, well, my conditioning was not right, or my mind was not right, or my head wasn't in it, or there'll be some sort of excuse, and they'll just start to build him again. But I don't know whether he's doing it for money or he just can't stay away. It must be very difficult when you've been pumped up for so long to be the future, which he was at one point, to have won a Commonwealth medal he won, and really, really want to be a world champion, but just never succeed. And it must be very difficult for a boxer to walk away from that. And I think that's what must be driving him, that he just still believes that he can do it. He may see himself in training or sparring, and his gas tank might not run out in sparring. So, is it psychological? you know, and he believes, you know, that he can keep going. And while he's still able to get into a boxing ring and sell a few tickets, he'll keep doing it. And no one around him is going to say, no, don't do it anymore, because he won't listen to them. If his trainer says don't do it anymore, he'll just go to a different trainer who will say, yeah, keep going. I've got it this time. You know, we know what happened, etc., etc.
Do you think that there is rationale in him coming back? You know, if he were to... So I said in my video yesterday, I think if Price accepted he wasn't a world title fighter, there is actually some merit in him coming back at British level. I actually think there's good fights for him there. Lewison, Dave Allen, the Sexton Cornish winner, maybe the Nick Webb Gorman winner, maybe Dubois, you know, maybe a Chisora or even a Dillian White. I actually think there's good fights for him there that are competitive fights that he could potentially even win. And, you know, maybe it would be a good end to his career to come back, get a few wins, win an English title, win a British title. Is that realistic? Or really is his mindset, the way he's been built, the hype that's surrounding him, is his mindset going to be that he wants to go for the world title again?
Yeah, because there's two options here. If he goes back to British level, which is fine, if he went back to British level and fought, I don't know, Lewinson or Dave Allen or whoever, and got beat, then there is no way back. You know, even he would probably admit to himself he got knocked out by Dave Allen. That's the end of it. But if he won a British title and beat those people, he's back on it again. And he'll start going, right, I'm moving up now. I've got the confidence back. I've got this back. My training's right. And then he'll start pushing again for another world title. So the only way this guy is going to quit is if he loses to a very, very poor boxer, you know, where everyone has to turn around and go, look, forget it, mate. But there's obviously still people talk to him that, if he's, I don't know whether he's still with Dave Caldwell, but still saying to him, you know, you've got it, you know.
He's left Dave Caldwell. Dave Caldwell advised him to retire, apparently.
Well, there you go then. Well, that proves the point that Dave Caldwell's saying he's retired, but someone else will train him and get the money for training him and say that, oh, you know, I can do something with you. And I'm sure many trainers look at him and think, well, this guy's got it all. You know, he's got the size, he's got the power. You know, I could be the man that can get this out of him and push him to that level that he wants to be at. But if it's not in you, it's not in you.
Yeah, no, completely. It's a sad career, really. But yeah, it's one you'll look back at. I mean, he's only lost to decent fighters, really. And the fighters he's lost to, I think he's had 4 losses, and 3 of those 4 losses have been to fighters who have had some claims regarding their taking of performance-enhancing drugs. So you kind of look back at David Price and you kind of feel bad for him. But
here,
yeah, maybe it is time to call it a day.
Look, anybody who saw the Olympic semi-final in 2008 against Beijing, when you saw him get folded over by the Chinese lad, is like, you just have to watch that fight, and I always knew he'd never be anything in professional boxing. He just doesn't have it. Just doesn't have it. Never had it, never will.
Interesting.
Well, the guys
pointing out chat that Zambano Love went the distance with Briggs. He went 10 rounds with Charles Martin. Yes, he did get knocked out by Joshua, but typically he's quite durable. And, you know, maybe if Zambano's still there after a couple of rounds, he could actually make it a very difficult night for David Price. But I don't know. I still think Price is well above that level, personally.
I'll tell you here what the plan is to bring him back and have him against Tony Bellew in a pay-per-view heavyweight fight, because everybody knows that there's fucking major beef between them two lads.
Well, this is why I go to work and do 10 hours a day, Tom, so I can afford pay-per-views like that. You know, it's kind of stuff gets me out of bed when my alarm goes at 6 in the morning.
Up there with Luke Campbell and Tommy Coyle, best pay-per-view so far this century.
That wasn't a pay-per-view.
That wasn't a pay-per-view, Irish.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I thought that was a pay-per-view.
Incorrect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Would you like to apologise publicly to Eddie Hearn for casting unfair aspersions on his business model?
Wait now a second here. I don't get this. I don't get this, guys. You're saying that I was wrong?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. This doesn't sound believable.
I know. Wonders never cease. Guys, one pay-per-view I will not be buying is the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor pay-per-view. I've actually booked a holiday that weekend. So that shows you just how pumped I am for that fight. Some say it's the biggest fight of all time. I chose to leave the country to avoid it. I did that before it was confirmed that my boy Nathan Cleverly was potentially going to be on the undercard against Badu Jack. However, even though I won't be watching it live and even though I won't be in the country to cover it, Cleverly versus Badu Jack is actually a fight that I sadistically quite like. What do you guys make of that matchup?
I'll go. I think Badu Jack's going to win that fight, to be honest. I think, obviously, depending on how he acclimatizes to the 175 division, he's got good fundamentals. He's improved in his championship run at 168, and he's gotten better and better. And I think he has really good fundamentals. I think Cleverly, he's negated his fundamentals. He's still a good fighter. He brings high octane pressure, a very good chin as well. But I think Badu Jack probably neutralised a lot of his pressure, and probably win a close but comfortable decision at 116, 112 or something like that. But it's a very good fight. Prefer that to be the co-main instead of Gervonta Davis, but it is what it is, and at least it's on the card, and hopefully we get to watch it.
It's got the potential to be a very, very good fight, regardless of who you think is going to win, I guess, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think Nathan Cleverly could win. He could overwhelm him with the pressure, but I think Badu Jack, he will come. He's very sound fundamentally. So, it's kind of a pick and fight. What do you like? A boxer versus kind of not a brawler, but a guy who brings a lot of pressure. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun fight to watch. Let's put it that way. It'll definitely be a fight of the night. I don't think Gervonta Davis will be in a competitive fight against Martinez, or the Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor fight will be competitive, regardless of what Paul says.
Yeah. If anyone sees any odds for that Cleverly Jack fight, can you hit me up on Twitter at Boxing Gossip? Because I'd be very interested in seeing those. Does anyone?
They're not out yet.
Yeah,
the odds aren't up yet.
They're not. No. I've looked. What do you expect?
I'd be favourite. I think Jack will be 1-3 favourite.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he might be a bit shorter than that, actually.
Like what? Like
I thought he might be more like
1-5 or something. Okay, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, mate. That was just my instinct. Jay, anything to add on that one, mate?
No, I think it'll be a really good fight. I like watching Nathan Cleverly, as you do, obviously. I like his style. I like his quick hands. I don't think he'll have enough, really, to beat Badu Jack. I think Badu Jack will be a little bit, even though he's moving up in weight, will be a little bit too strong and a bit tough, because, Cleverly's not renowned for his power. So, he's going to have to sit on the back foot all night and really on the back foot or pressure him highly to get some sort of decision on a Mayweather-McGregor Las Vegas card.
Yeah, I think he'll, well, you know what I think. But anyway.
You think he's going to knock him out?
Well, we say Cleverly doesn't have power. I think we should ask Jürgen Bremer that, being stopped in a few rounds and then having to vacate the weight class to duck the rematch,
with an elbow injury.
Yeah.
What do you call it, lads?
He takes joints out of sockets. Yeah.
Did you see, lads, that Carl Froch listens to the podcast?
I missed that, mate.
Did you hear the news that Carl Froch listens to this podcast?
How do you know that?
Tell me.
Well, you see, he must have been listening to last week when Paul broke the news on Mayweather getting beaten by McGregor, because he's come out on the BBC website. It's a headline, and he's basically saying that Mayweather is going to, could be beaten by McGregor. So he's obviously been listening to Paul, and we should take note because we all need to learn from Paul. It's good to see that Carl, who's an all-time great commentator and fighter, that that he's coming around to what Paul has been saying.
Well, I saw an article in one of the newspapers today, which was supposedly attributing this to quotes from Floyd himself, where Floyd was saying he thinks Conor McGregor may win, and that Conor McGregor has substantial advantages over him, is a lot younger than him, bigger than him, etc. Like, I did mention this, and this was the next thing I was going to come on to, which was with regard to the All Access and the build-up for this fight. But, they genuinely, legitimately seem to be trying to sell this fight with Floyd saying he's past it because it's the only way of trying to make the fight at all competitive. That Floyd is too old and won't be able to live with the youth of Conor McGregor. You're really scraping the barrel, don't you think, when that is your main way of flogging it? Trying to say that Floyd is just too old. Did any of you guys watch the All Access, or was that just me?
I read the article that you were discussing, but I didn't see the All Access.
I watched it. I
thought it was really poor, Jay. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's pretty much as well. If you watched any of the press conferences, that's what it was. So the first episode, as you said, was pretty, not what I like to see. I like those 24/7 All Access like you, and it helped me, hype the fight up myself in my own brain. But the second one again was it was all about lifestyle, wasn't it? Really, than actual footage of training or speaking to coaches or whatever. I think obviously the second one was a lot more interesting than the first one. The issues with I noticed that with Joe Cortez is with McGregor, and he was telling him things and very McGregor was very flippant, very casual, brushing him off almost. He was telling him to do things. He's going, yeah, I know. It's funny as this has gone on, and then this news has broke with Malignaggi. I've never gone on Floyd Mayweather's side to win a fight ever. I've always wanted him to lose because I just don't like the man. Respect him as a boxer, but don't like the man. But now I'm kind of like, I've come to the opinion where I just like McGregor to get properly schooled, because he's just making a complete mockery of the sport I love, and the way the stories are coming out, that the way he's treated Malignaggi, and then Van Heerden has come out and said, about his experiences with McGregor. It's I think they're just doing everything they possibly can to sell as many tickets, as many pay-per-views as they can. So with Mayweather saying what he's saying, with the photographs coming out of Malignaggi, it's just such a load of bullshit. It's just getting worse,
Yeah, it really is a circus trying to sell the pay-per-views, to be honest. This, usually they try and sell pay-per-views by making out that the matchup is it's more competitive than it is. But, it's a whole new level, this, trying to make out that the matchup's competitive because Floyd is past it. And, that it really is WWE circus. I have to just read out a great contribution from the chat, and I'll give special shout out here to regular chat contributor Team Groves, who put, first we lost Seri to Glowacki, now we've lost Paul to McGregor.
If you read that closely, he actually said Colin McGregor.
Good old Colin. That's his younger brother, his long lost cousin.
He's an accountant.
I saw someone else in the chat earlier. I think it might have been Delboy. Shout out to Delboy, saying Conor McTapper, which I thought was quite funny as well. But maybe that's just me being a bit of a chirp. But yeah, guys, anyone got anything else to add on Mayweather and McGregor before we move it on?
You guys will be wiping the smug grins off your face when Conor comes and cleans him out and becomes #1 pound for pound in the world. Irish takeover.
Pointless.
Ricky Burns versus Anthony Crolla.
Oh,
Overachievers in a crossroads fight. Interested or not?
the most boring fight that I've heard being announced. Oh my god.
Do you reckon Eddie Hearn will create some fake beef, otherwise known as gammon, or do you reckon it will just be?
It's going to be the lowest amount of views on IFL TV, period, because no one cares about this fight. No one cares about these guys, but it will still sell out the arena. And Burns is boring. Crawler is a Joe Gallagher fighter. So there you go.
I'll tell you what, though, I share your opinion, Jet. Or I did initially. You know, it is a fight with two guys who are just nice guys with not overly exciting styles who we've seen again and again and again and again. But as I actually started thinking about it, I'll be honest, I cannot pick a winner. I really cannot pick a winner. Who are you guys thinking?
Sorry?
Who are you guys thinking if you had to side with someone?
If I really had to, I'd go with Crawler. Just you know, not belatedly. If I, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Burns wins, but it's not a fight I'm interested in whatsoever.
Okay, Jet's thinking Crawler. Tom, what about you, mate?
I don't know. Like, it's one of those fights, just because it's a 50-50 fight doesn't mean it's going to be a good fight or one that we want to watch. I think it probably is close to 50-50. I think Burns will have a reach advantage, but I think Crawler will be able to get in on him. And Ricky is shot, and Crawler is, I wouldn't say shot, but he's. I suppose Crawler's got more activity in him, so I'd go with Crawler by points.
Yeah. Interesting. What about you? What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I give it Crawler. I think it's a nice little in-fight for Matchroom, isn't it? It's almost just sorting your mates out. That's what Eddie Hearn's doing, sorting your mates out, because he knows it's the last fight for Ricky Burns. He gets a bit of a send-off, bit of a payoff, and then it puts Crawler back up there because he's beaten a former world champion and get him a big fight, and that's all it is. But Crawler for me.
Yeah, I think if Ricky Burns loses, he's still got a big payday against Josh Taylor in him. I still think they can do that fight. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I suspect Crawler will win the matchup. So it's interesting that we all view it as a competitive fight, but we're unanimous in picking Crawler. Do you know what, though? I'm going to be fair. I initially yawned when the fight was announced. I thought, I'm really not interested in this one. But it's a 50-50 fight. It's going to be on a free-to-air bill. It's actually a fight that is tough to call. It's a fight that stylistically is an outside boxer versus a presser fighter. Both guys have the style to cause the other one problems. Look, it's not going to be the most explosive, athletic match between two up-and-coming fighters. And it's not going to be WWE outside of the ring. But the more I think about it, I'm actually warming to it ever so slightly as a contest, you know. I think Burns is the guy who's the 3-division champ, who's fought at a higher weight class, who's probably the bigger guy and the better from range. Crawler's got the momentum. You know, he's possibly looked a lot fresher in recent years. You know, I'm increasingly warming to the fight, I guess. But I would do.
Gossip. Ever the casual, BG. Ever the casual.
Gossip. I just got a text there from Eddie Hearn. He said the check's in the post.
Good. Tell him that because you text him back and say, thanks, Eddie. I'll put it towards buying one of your PPVs. So it won't go to waste. Yeah. Anyone got anything else to say on Crawler versus Burns?
No, thank you.
Good stuff, guys. We've come to the end of our agenda, which isn't a surprise because there wasn't much boxing on last week, and there's literally nothing on this week. So potentially looks like we're going to finish a bit early. Let me go around the panel and see if anyone else has anything else they want to throw in about boxing, about MMA, about Irish Takeover, about The Departed. You know, all of these are viable options tonight. Jay, let's start with yourself, mate.
Irish Takeover's failed dismally, and I'm half Irish, so if anything, I've put more Irish Takeover into this podcast than Irish Tom has. Yarde, who he's fighting Ryan Ford. I don't know whether anyone had an opinion on that fight and that whole shenanigans. No.
I tweeted Eddie Hearn about it. I replied to him, and I got some. I got a bite from him. I think he must be listening to the podcast. Your man Ryan Ford is ranked 40th in BoxRec. Like just like we said last week, there's loads of other fighters around the place. He's ranked 40th, and Hosea Burton is actually ranked 120th at cruiserweight for some fucking reason because his last fight was at cruiserweight. But you know, similar type of standard of fighter probably. You know, I watched actually the fight this evening. I watched his UBO world title fight. So not only is this, you know, is he going for a different fighter than Hosea Burton, who failed at the British title level? He's going for jumping up, you know, all the way up to world titleist. So, you know, we can't be accusing Yarde of ducking.
I'm accusing Yarde of ducking in the strongest possible terms. Yeah.
I was going to say
he's taken on a world titleist, a world champion. He's taken on
that belt is not on the line. Irish, it's WBO Intercontinental title, which is vacant, and the winner goes into the top 5 of the WBO rankings at £175.
Are you sure that UBO is not
BoxRec? Well, it says it's for the WBO European, which Yarde currently holds. But we're on the actual sort of poster. It's for the WBO Intercontinental title. Check on BoxRec and check on Twitter, the Frank Warren's Twitter.
But Ryan Ford is the UBO champion, which is a very respected belt.
Oh,
you know, so
Irish, give me a break.
So this is really like, you know, this is like a unification, if you will.
Of what? Of what?
Iris, tell me then, why has he turned down the Hosea Burton fight to fight this guy? Are we serious? Because he's higher on BoxRec? Are we serious that is the reason why?
No, I think it's just one of those, like, who knows? It's a pissing competition between the two promoters. Who cares? It's probably another guy similar to it. I'd say maybe they're a bit of putting him in against a very tall fighter, maybe. Otherwise, like, maybe Frank does not want to send him over to BT. You know, who knows? Who knows? Who cares?
You mean Sky?
Like, sorry, to Sky. Yeah, Frank might want to send him over to Sky.
But then why did Frank not go through with the purse bids and put in a purse bid for the fight?
Who knows? Maybe Frank doesn't want to spend all the money on this fight that he would have to spend on the other one, and he can get another fella of a reasonable level for much less money. That guy Ryan Ford's probably getting about 20 grand if he's lucky, instead of having to pay.
Let's hope he's better than his last opponent, Mr. Biryani.
Yeah, well, in fairness, like, biryani is actually quite a hot meal, as you know, for us European pale-skinned losers, and you know, so he probably thought it was going to be a much spicier fight.
Slightly lost for words, I must admit. But I've got to say I'm disappointed with how this is played out. I think Yarde and his team have ducked Hosea Burton. I think they were ordered a fight by the British Boxing Board of Control. They could have at least turned up to the purse bids to see what the offer was. I think Eddie Hearn had already suggested a 6-figure purse for Anthony Yarde, which probably is a career high payday for him for 4 or 5 times. It was a chance for Anthony Yarde to have a big step up in opposition and move towards a British title. And he hasn't elected to take that. And he hasn't elected to take that due to a variety of strange excuses, because this guy is ranked higher on BoxRec. Because
you can make all the
British title to fight him.
You can make all the same excuses about Frank Berlioni. Why doesn't he want to? If he thinks he's going to be a world level fighter, why doesn't he want to go and fight Yarde and blah blah blah? Who gives a shite? We're going to get some good fights in the future anyway. He's only up and coming. Like, it's not like any of us really cared about the Hosea Burton fight.
No one cares about Frank Berlioni. Don't talk about that guy. He'll get smashed by anyone at European level.
I think Hosea Burton is a fight for Yarde. I think Hosea Burton. I picked Yarde to win the fight, but I think that would be a real test for Anthony Yarde.
No, Anthony Yarde would actually wipe him out. because Hosea Burton's got a poor defence and his chin is up in the air, and Yarde will just clean him out in about whenever he wants to, in probably about 3 or 4 rounds. If Frank Puglioni, who's not known as a big puncher, can absolutely wipe the tiles with him, Yarde is just going to destroy him. But it is a change in styles, so it's dealing with a guy with a tall jab.
Well, Frank Puglioni
we're bigging up a guy that
Frank losing the fight and scored a behind the cards knockdown late on. Burton's a good fighter. He's also got he's what I think is I like to see fighters built the right way. I think Burton is a very good learning fight for Yarde. I think Yarde's biggest problem is going to prove to be his height. And I think Burton represents a guy who brings that height, jab, move style, which I think he'll struggle against at a level that you still pick Yarde to win at, even at this stage of his career.
Look, we've all said on this show that we expect Yarde as one of the top, if not the top UK prospect, a guy who we all expect to win a world title, right, in the next few years. Now, Frank Puglioni, is a decent British level fighter, but he doesn't have power. He's not a knockout artist. He's not even able to knock out people at the British level very much. He's had a number of close decisions, kind of draws that went the distance. And he's able to spark out Burton. Now, then we're talking about Yarde, who's we all think is a much higher class, much more devastating puncher. Somebody like Hosea Burton, who has his chin out in the air, is going to be much, much easier pickings for Yarde, who's also a superior boxer, it seems, so far to Puglioni. So it's not like Hosea Burton is a tough challenge. Hosea Burton is just another guy, and we're just drinking the Kool-Aid.
Styles make fights. Yarde is a superior talent to Burton. Yarde does punch harder than Burton. But let's see how Yarde deals with a 6'4", 6'5" moving like heavyweight, putting an awkward jab in his face. I suspect Yarde will win, but it's a test that I think is really key to his, him hitting his potential.
Well, it's no more a test than any other one particularly might be a test. It's not like the light heavyweight division is replete with 6'4" long jabbers.
I don't know if I look at Yarde, I think he's been matched very, very carefully today. And I do think he's a very hot prospect, but I do have concerns. I mean, we see fighters get to world title level and drown at that world title level. We saw it in Frank Warren's own stable very recently, where one of his elite blue chip prospects was taken apart at world title level. I don't think, in fairness, that what was the name of the guy that got beaten by Tank? Liam Walsh.
I don't think Liam Walsh is an elite prospect. Now, Yarde is a different quality, different class altogether.
Not anymore. Well, Yarde's a different.
Never.
His biggest.
But he was never.
He looks very good, but Liam Walsh would look very good at an area title level. And then it's not the only time Frank's done that as well. I mean, he built. Obviously, Puglioni was a lesser fighter. Let's be realistic. But Frank took Puglioni world title level without the right schooling. Frank took Nathan Cleverly to world title level and actually had Nathan Cleverly win the world title and have several defenses. And then it got exposed that Cleverly hadn't really, there is a problem with even Eddie Hearn did it, to be fair, with Charlie Edwards. I'm not saying this is an express Frank Warren thing, but Yarde is a blue chip.
I think if any of the two promoters have done it more, it's probably Eddie Hearn. And I think that Frank, there's only look, it's like you got a guy like Frank Puglioni. You're never going to be able to progress him up through all the levels because he's just going to get caught out towards the European and upper levels. But so even do with a fighter like that.
Even more reason Anthony Yarde should be built properly, because Yarde is a fighter who really, really could make the top level, but he's very young. He's got limited amateur pedigree. He's done very, very little in the pros so far. And we're talking about a guy who is absolutely tiny in terms of frame for the weight. He needs to get experience of how he's going to deal with that challenge straight off.
Look, he's, what is he, 9-fight novice? Like you were talking about him like he's like Deontay Wilder and he's 35-0. You know, he's a 9-fight novice. And
like,
none of us were calling for the Hosea Burton fight. We're going to have an argument about this for ages.
Yarde's 12-0. He's just rejected a fight with Hosea Burton because it would be a step back. If he wins this fight, he's going to be WBO top 5, and he's going to be moving towards a world title in short order. You know, I really think it's a problem.
It's not going to be a problem. Why would it be a problem? People can be in the world top 10 or in these ranking agencies for years without actually taking the title shot. And even if you get mandated to do it, you don't have to take your mandatory if you don't want to. It happens all the time. Like you progress them as how you want them. Look, it's just a pissing competition with the two guys. We're getting an equivalent fight. We're getting a top 40 fight on BoxRec. It's an equivalent level of fight against a guy with different attributes.
Tom, since when have we cared what someone is rated on BoxRec? I've never seen Rohan Ford fight personally. I don't know if you have. Maybe Rohan Ford is actually a good fighter. He's an undefeated fighter. He may be very good. I need to look into him. But this...
Not that good. I watched the fight today.
This him being rated at 40 is totally irrelevant. I mean, we could both pick up examples of fighters' rankings on BoxRec. You know, I think Tony Bellew was rated number 2 in the world at heavyweight at one point. You know, it's completely irrelevant, the BoxRec rating. You know, it's
not completely irrelevant. It's not completely irrelevant. You know, there's a lot of noise around that, but it's not completely irrelevant. He's not like a guy in the bottom in the 400s and the 200s like he's been fighting previously. He's a guy much higher. It's not like those rankings are completely indeterminate. They do have a predictive value. They're maybe not very accurate all the time.
Well, look, there's a link. Clearly, if someone is
a strong link,
top 10 in BoxRec, you would say there's a higher probability he's a decent fighter.
Yeah, but and if he's in the top...
As a test, I've just looked up Kubrat Pulev because we were all talking about the Pulev-Joshua fight earlier. Kubrat Pulev is the 4th rated heavyweight on the planet. You know, this is not a strict correlation.
It's a correlation. You know, and what's the rankings for the heavyweight?
Well, I'm on Pulev's
like
now.
What's number 40? What's number 40?
Let me tell you. So number 40 in the heavyweights is, bear with me for 1 second, Odlanier Solis.
It's Odlanier Solis. That's number 40. That's in heavyweight. Okay.
Wait, Jeff Horn is number 1 at welterweight. I just had a test. So does that mean Jeff Horn's the best in the world?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that, Jet. I'm just saying that there's...
I've never heard you saying, like, someone's disrating on BoxRec before. Like, I know you're not... I know you're a Frank Warren fan and stuff, but the truth
I'm not. I hate all the promoters. I just think, like, basically, what we're doing is we're having a chat for 20 minutes here on some bullshit pissing competition between two promoters, both of whom are shitbags.
Yeah, I think it's very, very weak to defend this fight by talking about BoxRec because we've never done that in the past.
Like, how else are you supposed to rank these guys when they're coming up and you don't know them? Look, we do it all the time. We do it all the time. We all know that it's not fucking B-end of it. B-end and whatever that expression is. And, you know, it just is. Like, I'm not even being controversial here. I think I'm fucking talking sense.
There you go. Any of the rest of you got any thoughts on that matchup?
The be all and end all, I think you were looking for, Tom.
Irish takeover.
Yeah, it's failing. It's been shut down. No, I don't have an opinion.
You may have won the battle, but I will win the war.
Pardon?
Won the battle, but I will win the war.
Got till the 26th of August. You better hurry up.
Paul's picking the ground.
Hey, that's all we needed. Paul,
Jet. Anything more from your angle, Jet?
No, not. Yeah, nothing from me, to be honest.
Nothing from you. Fair enough, mate. Iris. anything you would like to say before we end the podcast for the night, pal?
There's only 2 words I'd like to say, lads. What do people reckon?
It's either
Conor McGregor.
Irish takeover or Happy Wednesday.
I reckon it's
Actually,
Yarde ducking.
I've actually got 6. I've actually got 6 now.
Okay.
Colin McGregor, Irish takeover, Happy Wednesday.
And on that note, thank you for watching the podcast. Please hit the thumbs up button whether you're watching live or watching this after it's gone up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to Jet's channel as well, which is Boxing Discussions. We'll be back next Wednesday at 8:30. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thanks to the panel, as always, for giving up their Wednesday night. Cheers, all.
Au revoir.
Happy Wednesday.